Hey folks, this is Rhykker with the Gaming News Wrap-Up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include Unity's CEO calling non-money-minded game devs effing idiots, a number of quality mod releases, early Diablo 3 Season 27 PTR results, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before I move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a nutrition company with a nutritional drink, AG1, that supports your energy, focus, gut, digestion, and immune system health, all delivered through one daily serving. I've been drinking AG1 for a few months now as part of my morning ritual. I used to drink 4 cups of coffee a day, sometimes 8 if I was pulling an all-nighter, because it was the only thing that gave me energy. But after my doctor told me to drop that down to 2 cups, I now drink 0 cups of coffee a day, but I still have energy thanks to AG1. I've been taking different supplements on and off throughout my life, from Flintstone vitamins as a kid, to lots of vitamin D during the winter months here in Canada. Now my morning routine has been simplified to just 1 scoop of AG1 in 8 ounces of water. Give it a quick stir. The taste even reminds me of those Flintstone vitamins I took as a kid. AG1 is more than a greens powder. It contains 75 different ingredients, vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens. It's for anyone who's looking to get a little healthier. So go to athleticgreens.com/Rhykker to get started on your order. Athletic Greens is going to give my community a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. In our first quick story, the Resident Evil 2 remake has reached 10 million units sold since its release in 2019. The game received near universal acclaim from critics and players alike, and it's held as an example of how to do a remake the right way, with love and passion for the source material, and second, with an understanding of how to update the gameplay of a game from 1998 while keeping the overall experience the same, and with knowing what are the right changes to make for the right reasons. In other news, according to a job listing, Respawn is revealed to be working on a new single-player FPS in the Apex Legends universe, which is technically the Titanfall universe, but I guess kids don't know that these days, do they? Do kids these days know that Warcraft used to be an RTS? They must, right? Or do kids just not even play World of Warcraft at all? Anyway, the fact that they call this the Apex Legends universe pretty much dashes any hopes for Titanfall fans, but I suppose the game being single player would have ruled out Titanfall 3 anyway. In other news, out of nowhere, Bayonetta 3's release date was announced this week. It's going to release on October 28th. The game was officially announced by Nintendo in December 2017 alongside the Nintendo Switch versions of Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2. The game was then unveiled in September 2021, showcasing gameplay for the first time and giving us a 2022 release window. And developer Platinum Games even revealed this week the Naive Angel mode that they added to the game, which seems to tone down the skimpy outfits so that when your parent or child walks in on you, you don't have some awkward explaining to do. Like the time in 1998 when my parents came down to see me playing Death Trap Dungeon, and I had to awkwardly explain why I had picked the female character instead of the male character. It's because the character model took up less screen real estate. I could see the enemies better. You gotta squeeze out every advantage you can get. It's a pro gamer move. Moving on, in a follow-up story to last week's story about Ubisoft decommissioning games and taking away the DLC you paid for, well, it turns out this was just a massive miscommunication and misunderstanding. You will still be able to access, play, and re-download the DLC that you previously bought. And no, it's not Ubisoft backtracking after a backlash. They left a paper trail before the backlash where they explained this better in a forum post that apparently no one saw. In other news, some previously unreleased footage of the cancelled Doom 4 was revealed this week. Doom 4 was originally announced in 2008, but then its development was rebooted in 2011 after being trapped in development hell, and it was re-revealed as simply Doom in 2014, and we know it today as Doom. The original Doom 4 was going to portray the uprising of hell on Earth, and would be heavily scripted and cinematic, like a Call of Duty campaign. The crowdfunded documentary makers at NoClip revealed this week a look at some new footage, and if you're a Doom fan, it's definitely worth checking out. In other news, Path of Exile's traditional announcement of an announcement happened this week. We learned that the launch of the next expansion will likely be August 12th, so Sentinel League will likely end on August 9th. We'll get official dates on all of this as we near the release. The devs also reiterated that all future expansions, including upcoming 3.19, leading up to Path of Exile 2 will contain further improvements to the endgame. The scope of the upcoming expansion will apparently be bigger than Sentinel, so that takes us to the usual question: what do you folks think the new league will entail? Sound off in the comments. In some modding news, the Battlefield 3 reality mod drops tomorrow, and a trailer released earlier this week. This mod has been in development for 7 years, and more than 80 contributors have helped complete it. If you ever felt that Battlefield 3 was too arcadey, then this mod is for you. It brings in the tactical military sim that a lot of players are looking for. Just like in real military operations, there's a big focus on communication and teamwork. If you're familiar with the Battlefield 2 Project Reality mod, it's basically the Battlefield 3 version of that. There's a complete overhaul to the gameplay and the UI in order to create a more immersive, realistic, and tactical experience. If you want to check it out, link in the description. In other modding news, the multiplayer Skyrim mod we mentioned last week, Skyrim Together Reborn, was released. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but over 100,000 people have downloaded it already. Early reports are that it's a little buggy, so pretty faithful to the original Skyrim experience, but otherwise it works great. All the players in the game can move around independently and do whatever they want. You can have multiple people in different parts of the world. I don't know why you'd want to, since the whole point is to play together, but you can. If you've had a chance to try out the mod, sound off in the comments with your experience. If you haven't, well, download link is below. In some PC gaming news, the PC market has been declining at its fastest rate in years. Now, this is not just the PC gaming market, but the PC market as a whole. In fact, the non-gaming sector was hit significantly worse, with overall there's a 12.6% year-over-year drop, according to research firm Gartner. Now, Gartner attributes 3 main reasons for the drop. The first is the invasion of Ukraine. The second is inflation raising the cost of living, and thus people having less disposable income to buy computers and computer parts. And lastly, the steep decline in the demand for Chromebooks. As for gaming PCs specifically, well, graphics cards have been insanely expensive for a couple of years, partially because of cryptocurrency mining and partially due to the global chip shortage that began in 2020. The demand for semiconductor chips across various industries has exceeded the supply. Now, prices are starting to normalize thanks to supply constraints easing up and the crypto market not doing so well lately. And with AMD, Intel, and Nvidia expected to be releasing a new generation of processors and graphics cards later this year, we'll likely see a boost in PC gaming sales. Now, raise of hands, how many of you folks skipped the 30 series of cards and are waiting for the 40 series? How many of you also skipped the 20 series and are still sitting on the 10 series? In other industry news, Unity, the game engine, has been making headlines lately. Now, Unity has been a favorite among indie devs for a long time. It's an easy engine to get into and just make a game, be it on PC, console, or even mobile, and it has a built-in asset store where creators can buy or sell user-generated content. So if you want to make a game but you're not artistically inclined, you can visit the store and just buy up a bunch of assets that other creators are selling. As of 2018, about half the mobile games on the market were made in Unity, as well as most virtual reality games and experiences. Now, a couple weeks ago, Unity Technologies made headlines for laying off around 4% of its workforce, hundreds of staffers. This week, it was revealed that Unity is merging with ironSource, a company that first became known for developing InstallCore, an installation platform that ultimately ended up being classified as basically adware or even malware by a number of anti-malware programs, because it's one of those programs that would ask you to download and install all those useless toolbars and utilities that just slow down your computer, or more specifically your parents' computer, and then when you use their computer you wonder why it's so horribly slow when you see 80,000 toolbars that aren't doing anything productive. So following this, ironSource pivoted to focusing on in-game ads in the mobile space. And this is why Unity wants to merge with them to leverage their monetization solutions in order to help aspiring game devs better monetize their games. Now, I'm of two minds here. Game devs absolutely deserve money. If they make a good product and you buy the product and you like the product, you should hope that the devs make enough money to be able to keep making games. If you can give game devs better tools to understand how to monetize their games, as long as it's ethical, why not? On the other hand, the CEO of Unity is John Riccitiello, and he was quoted this week as saying that the game devs who don't think about monetization during their creative process are, quote, some of the biggest effing idiots. Now, let's give full context to this quote. The announcement of the merger came along with a blog post that stated, quote, what if that process was no longer first create, then monetize? And the basic idea that they were conveying here is, rather than make a game and then later figure out how to monetize it, you instead could design the monetization system at the same time as the game. And in early access, you can run your game as a live service as you are developing it, and you get data and you get metrics that help guide the development of the game. So in an interview with Pocket Gamer, when Pocket Gamer pointed out that many game devs have pushed back against the idea of introducing monetization earlier in the development process, since, a lot of game devs just want to make fun games and not money traps. Well, Riccitiello said the following, quote, Ferrari and some of the other high-end car manufacturers still use clay and carving knives. It's a very small portion of the gaming industry that works that way, and some of these people are my favorite people in the world to fight with. They're the most beautiful and pure, brilliant people. They're also some of the biggest effing idiots. I've been in the gaming industry longer than most anybody. Getting to the gray hair and all that. It used to be the case that developers would throw their game over the wall to the publicist and Salesforce with literally no interaction beforehand. That model is baked into the philosophy of a lot of art forms and medium, and it's one I am deeply respectful of. I know their dedication and care, but this industry divides people between those who still hold to that philosophy and those who massively embrace how to figure out what makes a successful product. And I don't know a successful artist anywhere that doesn't care about what their player thinks. This is where this cycle of feedback comes back, and they can choose to ignore it. But to choose to not know it at all is not a great call. I've seen great games fail because they tuned their compulsion loop to 2 minutes when it should have been an hour. Sometimes you wouldn't even notice the product difference between a massive success and tremendous fail. But for this tuning and what it does to the attrition rate, there isn't a developer on the planet that wouldn't want that knowledge. I'll mention as well that Riccitiello has been CEO of Unity since 2014, after being on the board since 2013. But before that, in the past, he was the CEO and president of EA. And over a decade ago, he was quoted as saying to shareholders, quote, a big and substantial proportion of revenue is from microtransactions. When you are 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip, and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not very price sensitive at that point in time. What he's referring to is the psychological concept of ego depletion, where you're basically at a point where, you're not making rational decisions. You are in a vulnerable state to be exploited. He went on to describe this as a great model and that it represents a substantially better future for the industry. Well, that was over 10 years ago. Yep, the industry has certainly become a lot better for the shareholders. So a lot of game devs have expressed their unhappiness with the merger between Unity and ironSource, and this just seems to be pushing more people towards the Unreal Engine, which dominates Unity in the market when it comes to building big games. But lately, on the other end, Godot, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that right, has been rising up as a contender to Unity for smaller and mobile games. It's open source, it's easy to use, so you have indie devs who are being increasingly drawn to Godot, while big devs are drawn to the Unreal Engine, and Unity may be losing its place in the market. And that takes us to some World of Warcraft news. With testing for the upcoming Dragonflight expansion coming up, some players have been expressing concerns that their window between testing and release is a lot closer than past expansions. Well, production director Patrick Dawson spoke to IGN and explained that there's nothing to be concerned about. This is because Blizzard is changing how they do testing. He said, quote, "In prior alphas, we'd have a 2.5 month long process where different things came online in a haphazard and less structured way. Maybe you get one zone, then you'd have to wait 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even longer for the next zone. Systems wouldn't come on at a consistent rate, that kind of stuff. But one of the models we liked was how we do things like raid testing. What we do is we open up a boss for people to focus on. Everybody plays that boss, we get great focused feedback on that, and then we shut it down and move on to the next boss. Likewise, we looked at our alpha strategy and we said, how can we get that type of feedback out of an alpha? And the answer was, instead of having this long alpha, let's compress it a bit and focus the feedback on specific things each and every week. The other reason he gave for a shorter alpha was quite simple. Less data mining, less spoilers, more secrets to be revealed when the expansion actually launches. Dawson also assured players that Dragonflight has been in development since before Shadowlands shipped, and that the team has spent as much time working on it as pretty much every other WoW expansion. And that takes us into Diablo news, beginning with the thought, if Blizzard is changing how they do alpha testing, does this extend beyond World of Warcraft? Now, based on past timelines of internal testing and external testing, as we discussed in previous episodes, it seemed as though Diablo 4 beta testing could begin in early September. But if the shorter testing phase extends to Diablo 4 as well, then it could be pushed back. And speaking of Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft, it seems as though Redditor Mythic Drop has solved a puzzle we discussed many episodes ago. In early April, an achievement was data mined on the WoW test server. Achievement: owner of the Diablo 4 Collector's Edition Amalgam of Rage mount. Reigns of the Amalgam of Rage. So it sounds like the Diablo 4 Collector's Edition will have a special mount called the Amalgam of Rage. And if you own that, you get the same mount in World of Warcraft. Now, it's not unusual for Blizzard to do cross promotions like that. If you buy the collector's edition of one game, you get a reward in another Blizzard game. At the same time, we speculated on what an Amalgam of Rage could be, but it looks like Mythic Drop has Sherlock Holmes'd us an answer. Back in 2021, the Q2 quarterly update for D4 focused on character art. And in it, the devs showcased these images and videos of a creature that looks like some sort of zombie Cerberus, a multi-headed animal of some kind. Mythic Drop compared it to the bear creature from the movie Annihilation, and I totally get that vibe. By the way, Annihilation, very good psychological horror sci-fi. Anyway, Mythic Drop also noticed that there seems to be reins on this mutant creature. He did some digging around and found, in the Blizzard Press Center, where they host assets to be used by journalism outlets when covering Blizzard stories, a screenshot of this monster. And the file name of that screenshot, Amalgam Head Closeup.png. So this is the smoking gun. This is the Amalgam of Rage. This is the Collector's Edition mount we'll get in D4, and WoW will likely get some cartoonified version of it. Great sleuthing, Mythic Drop. In Diablo 3 news, we're a few days into PTR testing now for Season 27. And man, things have been crazy. First off, the PTR servers have been lagging more than ever, and that's at least partially thanks to all the crazy effects that the season theme brings, like 20 salvo rapid-fire magic missile bullet hell wizard, or 80,000 skeletons charging enemies on your screen at a time, necromancers. PTR servers can't handle as much as live servers. They're hopefully gonna resolve all of this by the time it launches. This is all just normal PTR test server stuff. The most broken and entertaining thing going on is the Rothma Necromancers, which are smashing GR 150s less than a week into season. Hell, less than a day into season they already were. The season theme, the Sanctified Item effect, makes every enemy on screen assaulted by Army of the Dead. So you just see this constant constant waves of skeletons smashing into enemies, and it's amazingly fun. There's a broken interaction right now that is making it overpowered, but hopefully this gets fixed. And when it gets fixed, I mean, obviously it's gonna get fixed, but hopefully when it gets fixed, it will remain powerful without being overpowered. Then the Tragwell Blood Nova build is doing pretty well. It's looking to be one of the top builds of the season. With a Legacy of Dreams version as well, a strong contender. Wouldn't surprise me if it surpasses Trags. For the Barbarian, the Legacy of Dreams Hammer of the Ancients build is doing great. But the Whirlwind build is nowhere close to S tier. The buffs just aren't enough. For the Crusader, the new Akan build is great fun, but it simply cannot benefit from the season theme. So it's just not competitive yet, it needs some more love. And despite all the love that the Hammerdin got, it just seems to be for nothing. The Hammerdin is still nowhere close to where it needs to be. If things don't change, the Crusader looks like it's going to be another season of Aegis of Valor. And that's going to be going on, how many years now? For the Demon Hunter, a Marauder Strafe build has emerged as quite powerful, but it's a bit buggy. They gotta work on that a bit. For the Monk, as expected, Legacy of Dreams Wave of Light is dominating. It was already super powerful, now it's even stronger. It's definitely going to be a top build again in Season 27. Sanmuku Wave of Light simultaneously sees a buff, but it can't contend with the power of LOD. So it's still a build to take while you're progressing towards your LOD version of Wave of Light. Uliana's got a significant buff, but again, seems it's not quite there, needs a little bit more love. Inna's did take a heavy hit from the nerf, but it's still great for speedruns. The Raymond Generator Monk arguably sees a buff, you can work in the season theme there, but it's just not enough to make the set worth taking. For the Wizard, the 20 magic missiles do work with Firebirds as we suspected, and it's actually not overpowered. It's very strong, but it's potentially okay as it is. Maybe it'll see a slight nerf, but it's not dominating like the Rothma Necromancer. Firebirds will, however, likely be the top Wizard build. Then, despite all the love Dalzir's got, it's just not competitive with Firebird, and the same holds true for Tal Rasha and its rework, not competitive with Firebird. As for Witch Doctors, they just don't seem to benefit much from the season theme, but I admit I haven't paid as much attention to the Witch Doctor as the other classes yet. Overall, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done before this patch is ready to go live, but we're looking to see some significant meta shakeups for Season 24, and it's exciting. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discussed Blizzard's CEO's thoughts on Diablo Immortal's monetization. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhyker's Raiders for more gaming content.